sit back, relax, and let's have a chapter chat. On today's episode of Chapter Chat, we have a returning guest, and she is one of my favorite authors to talk with, Ashley Poston. Hi, Ashley.
Hi, it's so great to be back. I'm very excited to chat with you again.
Yes, I can't wait. You have a new release out, and let's talk about the Someday Garden. I got a little sneak peek of it, and it's fantastic once again.
Thank you. It feels like kind of like a best kept secret where it's like, oh, is it a retelling of The Secret Garden? Like not really, but it is inspired very much from my love of The Secret Garden. And so whenever someone says The Someday Garden, I'm like, oh, it's so close.
It's so close. And I love that you have an inspiration, but you've put your own twist on it.
It's one of those things where I like to take an idea and I like to explore it in my own sort of my own way, obviously. I like taking the tropes of The Secret Garden and I liked combining them with other romantic tropes that I really appreciate. There's like a love triangle because anyone who has like read or watched The Secret Garden, like kind of like loved that kind of like first like childhood blush of like a romance, right? And then like as we grew up, we were like, no, like that was absolutely my first introduction to a love triangle. Kind of. And so I was like, well, I want to try that, but in like my font, basically. And so that's how the Someday Garden was born. And I love gardening, and Maine is gorgeous in the summer. And so I wanted to put all of my favorite things together. And what's better than having research trips to botanical gardens?
Yeah, that is one of the best things I would think about being an author is when you have to do research trips.
Yes, research trips are one of my favorite things to do as an author, just because I like introducing myself to new things and new experiences. So there's this old adage, write what you know. I don't really like that. I like write what you're curious about, what you want to know. Because then it kind of prompts you to learn more about it. Writing every new book for me is like relearning how to ride a bike. It's one of those things where I have to reteach myself because every story is different and I have to learn new things for those stories. And there are always things that I'm curious about or that I have like a kind of middling knowledge about, but I want to learn a whole lot more.
Well, and what I realized about your writing, because I've read all of your romance, magical realism novels, is that you do see a common theme of that magical realism, but they are all different.
I do not like to write the same trope twice, really. I think for me, I do different sort of shades of magical realism because I like to discover different like magical aspects of the things that I like in fantasy and see how I can port them over to contemporary. And so I've done like a ghost story, I've done time travel, I've done falling into a fictional world, like a portal fantasy type deal. I've done telepathy, and then in this one, I'm kind of actually going back to time travel, but in a weird sort of liminal space, which is where we find the Someday Garden.
And you also explore the themes of grief in this novel.
I do. I think in every book that in every adult romance that I've written so far, I've had to deal with a different grief myself in life because, you know, there's never a year that just, you know, wants to play nice with me, it seems.
Right.
And so this year last year, I guess, when I was writing the Someday Garden, there were some things that were happening in my personal life, and how I go through them and how I process them is by writing them down and seeing this emotion in third person and seeing how it reflects upon like the fictional world that I've created. And that's kind of how I consume and how I understand my own feelings. And the Someday Garden is no different. It is about the passing of a best friend and how that leaves the people who are still around with like a certain level of grief, especially for a best friend, and like how to figure out how to navigate that grief and where to go from there. And it was one of the most interesting books that I've written grief-wise, because my best friend is still alive and kicking. But so it was definitely one of those like what if scenarios. But I did end up talking with quite a few people who have lost their best friends, because again, as I said, research. I love talking with people. I love informational interviews. And like, that's not just for locations, it's also for like locations in the heart as well. So it's for like the different shades of grief and the different shades of wanting and of the different like shades like that your life goes through. From like being happy in your career to wanting something more, to understanding that maybe you can be happy somewhere, but it's not fulfilling in the way you thought it was. And so I talked with a lot of people about it, and I got their stories, and they all influenced the Someday Garden.
And I love how you said that you like to write through things that are difficult. And I even remember as a child when my grandparents passed away, the thing that I immediately did was I wrote about them, and I wrote something that I could talk about at their funeral, because that was healing, and that was a way that I felt like I could honor them. So I can relate to that.
Yeah, there's just something really human and really healing about writing down your experiences, because you are putting their life to paper. You're putting their life to like a memory that won't fade away, right? You're cementing their legacy in like a different way. And I feel that that's like really important. That's how we've always told stories, right? That's how we've always remembered people, is by writing them down and telling their stories long after they've gone. And I love that part of like the humanness of us and how we process like loss and grief, and also happiness too, because we like also write down.
Yeah, I do too. And even though you touch on that theme of grief, the whole book is not about that.
Absolutely not. If the entire book was about grief, I would probably just cry the entire time writing it. For me, grief, when I write grief, it swings on a pendulum. You have to really write and understand grief. You also have to have like moments of happiness and moments of joy. And so when I write, I imagine motions on that pendulum going back and forth. Whereas if there's a moment of grief, there has to also be followed by a moment of joy and hope and happiness, or like something that cements the reader in like in the knowledge that, oh, I'm here, I'm in the story for a reason, and this is a good story. And so I like kind of balancing them out. And the Someday Garden is also about Sophie, the main character, finding out where she fits in after this life-altering moment. And she finds herself in this sort of run-down botanical garden in Maine, and she has the terrible task of having to revitalize it for the 200-year anniversary of this historical house and gardens. And it's about her finding friends again and finding where she fits in again. And it was one of my favorite books to write, I believe, because of that journey with her.
And Ashley, it's no secret, I've said this before, you're one of my favorite authors. And you combine, yes, you're welcome. You combine two genres that I just love, and that's romance and then magical realism. And do you find magical realism hard to write, or does that come naturally to you?
Oh, I find it so much easier to write than just a normal contemporary. I find normal contemporaries, don't tell everyone else, but I find them a little boring, especially to write, because I'm living in a contemporary romance. I'm out there on those dating apps. I'm going to those restaurants. I know what it's like. I don't know what it's like to, live in a time traveling apartment or finding a liminal space, in a botanical garden, right? So I like adding some kind of magic to it, and it makes it easier for me because that means I can also apply my own rules to the world. It means that I have with every bit of magic that I include into this narrative, I know that there has to be a resolution to that magic too. So it also helps me figure out the arc of the story and where it's going, because every time I write magic into my books, they always end up being foils for the main characters. And so for The Dead Romantics, it was a ghost story because it was about Florence learning how to say goodbye. And what better way to explore that than by a ghost that returns, right? And for The 7-Year Slip, it was about Clementine learning that what she wanted 7 years ago isn't what she wants now. And what better way than with a time traveling apartment? And for a novel love story, you know, it was a fictional town, and the main character, she feels like she's a secondary character in her own life. So what better way than to plunk her into a fictional town of her favorite romance book, right? And so I love making the magic kind of serve the purpose of like the character arc. And so it's not just a set dressing. It's very important to the story and to the characters and to what they have to learn in the end. And how they get together, obviously.
Right. And you have talked about difficulties you've encountered when you've been writing certain novels. What difficulties did you encounter with this particular one?
This one was difficult in a much different way than all of my other adult romances that I've written, mostly because I didn't know what this book was at first. I knew that it was a garden setting. I knew that I wanted some kind of magic to happen in the secret garden, but I didn't exactly know how I wanted that to look or who the characters were. And so it was a learning process with how to find them and to find out who they were. And so I ended up writing the wrong story over and over and over again, and it burned me out really badly. And so by the end of it, I was writing this final draft, and I knew it was the draft that was going to stick. But at that point, I was so unsure of my own instincts and of myself that I was second guessing everything. And so I just kept on choosing the wrong thing for the characters, and I kept on writing the wrong way, like writing in the wrong direction. And so that was really difficult. But hey, I learned to trust my gut and to trust my instincts again, which was something that I kind of needed to learn again.
And what brings you back to that, to your instincts? Was there a certain person that helped you come back to that?
Mostly it's my editor, honestly. My editor, Amanda, she's fantastic, and she will not sugarcoat it when I go off in the wrong direction. She will say, "Hey, this is not your best," or like, "You didn't need to rewrite this scene. This is not like the hot spot where you needed to rewrite it, was somewhere a little different." And she was also very, very like supportive, and she gave me a lot of hard work, and she asked a lot of hard questions, but I respect that so much because she knew that I could answer them, and she knew that I could take the heat. So she helped me grow in that regard. And like, and she helped me figure out how to trust my instincts again, which is so important. Especially like for me, because whenever I do think that I need to go in this direction instead because, oh, this is what the readers want. This is what's popular right now. This is what's going to be the greatest common denominator of people liking this thing. And whenever I get that in my head, and I get that in my head so often these days, that I lose the magic of what I like to do and the things that I like to write and the questions that I want to ask and the adventures I want to travel. And so that's always difficult for me because there's always that voice in the back of my head going, "Oh, but this isn't what's popular right now," or "This isn't what you think everyone wants to read." But then in the end, how do I know what everyone wants to read when they haven't read my thing yet? So.
Right. And that is so easy to do, especially when you've had success before. I feel like sometimes when something's successful, it can cause you to stop in your tracks because you're like, can I ever get to that level again?
Yeah, it's paralyzing, honestly.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it's very paralyzing. You are afraid that you will never be as good as you were writing this one book, or people won't like the next book that you write more than the first one that they were introduced to, and like that's the reality of it though, because like not everyone is going to like every new book that I put out more than the last. Like everyone's going to have a favorite. I have a favorite book from my favorite author, and it's not the most recent one. So why do I expect like myself to write their next favorite thing? It's madness. That way lies madness.
Yeah, you have to give yourself grace for sure. But I encounter it too. I think that's why I feel like I can relate to you because I'll do a special project, a documentary, a special report, and then it'll win an award. And then you're like, oh my goodness, can I ever do another award-winning piece again? And it can paralyze you.
Exactly. And it's like, well, how do I achieve like that greatness again? Where like the question is like, not how I do that again. How do I emulate that? Because you don't want to do that again. You've already done it once. But the question is always, how do I reach that level of artistry again with something else? And that's just not going to happen because art's different in every way. Like if you look at a painting, like two different paintings by the same artist, like if you look at the sunflowers by Van Gogh versus the cypresses, they're vastly different. And some people like the sunflowers more than they do the cypresses or vice versa. And they're both great in their own regard. And they both have such artistry and like technicality to them. But they are very different because one's trees and one's flowers. and they were also made at different parts of his life as well. And so I feel like whenever I like get into my own head about all of this, I think about the sunflowers and the cypresses. And I was like, well, I don't need to make another sunflower. I can now try to make some cypresses for a while. And people might not like it, but I'm going to like it regardless. So, and I'm my biggest critic. So
exactly. Yeah, you kind of get to that point where you have to say, okay, this is the best I can do at this moment and where I'm at right now in my life. And people are either going to love it or they're not, but I put out my best work.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, that's all you can do. And then you release a piece of art for consumption, and then it's for consumption. So people will rate it 1 to 5 stars, even though it's not a functional, like, doohickey. It's a piece of art. It's like 3.5 stars for the Mona Lisa, right? She wasn't smiling enough.
Right. Yeah. Well, I am enjoying the Someday Garden, and I think that readers are going to enjoy it as well. I mean, how could you not enjoy when you're talking about flowers?
Oh, right. I just want to like live in a world of just beautiful botanical gardens and flowers my entire life. That would be fantastic.
Yes, I have this wonderful memory. We went on a family vacation, and my daughter, she was just a little toddler at the time, and where we were at, they had this beautiful garden. And there were all these other things we could do, but all she wanted to do was just run from flower to flower and have me take her picture in the garden. And
that's so magical.
It was. And I look back at those pictures and it was just pure joy. And we didn't have to do some expensive something. She was just in the moment and enjoying the beauty around her. And that was magical.
That is actually magic. That like people are like, oh, magic doesn't exist. It's like, no, have you seen a kid walk into a garden for the first time
right.
who hasn't seen a botanical garden? Like that is magic. Or like introducing someone for the first time to like their new favorite book. That's magic. And I wanted to try and bring that feeling of discovery and wonder to the Someday Garden as much as I could, because around every corner of this garden, there's something new, or there's something like interesting or magical or inventive. And I wanted to kind of like keep that wonder up in the pages. So I hope I at least like touched a little bit of it.
Oh, you did. Yes, you did. And would you say that there's a favorite book that you've written?
Oh, you can't ask me that. That's like asking someone who their favorite child is.
It is, isn't it?
Of course we all have it. I mean, we have a favorite child.
Yeah.
I think that The Someday Garden is actually my favorite. And I'm not saying it just because it's the newest one is the one that I'm talking about now. But it's because I worked so hard on this book. And I know these characters so well now. And I put all of my favorite tropes and all of like my hopes and dreams and wishes into this book. And I just really hope readers enjoy it. And I hope that even if it's not their favorite book, that's fine. But I hope they find a little bit of happiness and wonder in it, because that is exactly how I felt finally, like getting to the final draft and realizing that, oh, this is what it feels like to write again. This is what it feels like to write something that I want to read, that is indicative of like my artistry and my talent. And I don't know, I just really love the Someday Garden. When I was little, my grandmother had this huge expansive garden, and like every single memory that I have of her was out in the gardens, just like deadheading roses and watering plants. And she had the greenest thumb in the world. I can't keep a cactus alive. Yeah. But I remember her love and her dedication to this yard that was just beautiful. And I got to play in it every day, which was the most amazing thing as a kid.
What a gift.
And truly, what a gift. And I remember like imagining out there for most of my childhood and climbing the trees and, going through the rose bushes and the azaleas. And it was just one of those magical moments where I hope that I at least brought a little bit of that like love and that wonder into the Someday Garden.
And how long did it take you to write the Someday Garden?
Ooh, so it took, because I was on a very tight deadline and I had another book due beforehand. I had to write it in 5 months.
Ooh.
Yeah. So it was a very tight turnaround, but I lived and breathed that book for those 5 months. I drew maps of what Lilymore looks like. I know exactly how the botanical garden looks and feels, and what flowers are planted where. And it's like, it's going to be ingrained in my mind forever because of those 5 months. And I'm very happy that I have those 5 months with the Someday Garden. So
I thought that the names of the chapters were interesting. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So the names of the chapters are untranslatable words, but they're only untranslatable in English, which is also why there are a few English words as the chapter headers as well. And the chapter headers go back to the best friend who passed away. She collected these untranslatable words because she thought that they were kind of magic too, because how can this one word encapsulate an entire feeling or an entire moment? And Harriet, the best friend, really, really loved that. And so to bring her back into the story, every single chapter header is an untranslatable word from her notebook.
I found that so fascinating, and I thought it was just a nice element.
Thank you. I also have a journal of untranslatable words. So
really?
That's, Yeah. I started collecting them when I was 13 or 14 years old. And I just never stopped. It's like a small little, like, field pocket sized notebook. And it's full of like pages and pages and pages of untranslatable words at this point. So I just like went through and I picked my favorites.
I love that. I think that readers will enjoy that little element too, a little element of surprise there. I've also noticed that some of your prior releases are getting a bit of a new look in some stores. So,
oh, yes.
Yeah, like the pages, the covers.
So The Dead Romantics has a really pretty pink overlay for Target, which is really lovely. And I know the UK is doing sprayed edges for the Someday Garden, which is beautiful. And we might have a special edition of the Someday Garden for US readers as well. But it might not come out for a little while, but it's going to be really fun. It's going to be part of a book box, and it's beautiful.
When I saw The Dead Romantics in Target and the new edition, I was like, oh, I might need to buy it again. Pink, ghost story, love, right. All the things.
It's perfect. And like, I was like, all right, sure, Target. That's fantastic. I love a good pink cover. Obviously, sounds like Love was also pink.
And is it interesting to you that some of your prior releases are still getting so much traction?
Yeah, actually. We've always there's always this like hope that your books have a long tail to them, which basically means that they keep selling months and months and months after release. I did not expect that to actually happen as well as it has with mine, especially with the 7-Year Slip. Everyone still loves and talks about the 7-Year Slip, which I am so excited and happy about. And then when they read the 7-Year Slip, they find my other books as well. And so it's just a snowball effect, sort of. And I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And I mean, the way I found you was through The Dead Romantics. And then every time there's been a release, I'm like, got to get my hands on that.
And luckily, you won't have to wait very long for my next book to come out. So it's
really?
No, so I actually do not have a June release next year. The Someday Garden is kind of a last hurrah for me for a little while with magical realism. So
okay.
I'm going to something else. I don't think I can talk about it publicly yet, but I'm very excited, and it's going to come out before June. And then if you also like a love story in a galaxy far, far away, I also have a Star Wars romance coming out in July.
You have been busy.
Too busy.
You're going to need to escape in a secret garden for a while after all of this comes out and just relax.
Please, let me disappear for a while with Howlswing Castle by Diana Wynne Jones and a secret garden and a nice iced tea. That's all I want.
That is perfection.
Yeah, kind of is.
Well, is there any last words you have for our listeners today?
Just thank you for listening to me blab for a little bit about gardens and my grandmother and books. And I really hope that everyone who reads the Someday Garden will at least want to get lost in a garden for a little while, or at least read in a garden for a little while. I feel like that will be the best experience for you.
Ashley, thanks so much for spending time with us today.
Of course. Thank you so much for inviting me. I truly, truly appreciate it.
You've been listening to Chapter Chat. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Happy reading.